After being accused of cheating, this 16-year-old girl's incredible response shocked everyone. The moment Sarah Thompson walked out of her math class, the world felt like it was crumbling around her. She had aced the exam, but as the highest scorer, she was suddenly the target of accusations. Mr. Jenkins, her mentor, someone she'd always looked up to, believed she had cheated. How was that even possible? Her own self-doubt clawed at her insides as she replayed the moment, his piercing gaze, the whispers that followed, how everything shifted in an instant. She felt like she'd been thrust into some twisted reality show, where her quiet presence was now the centerpiece of gossip. Sarah pressed her palms against her temples to quell the rising tide of panic. The weight of her family's financial struggles tightened around her chest, threatening to suffocate her. If only they could see how hard she worked, how diligently she studied between school and her part-time job at the diner. It felt like all of her efforts were being ripped from her hands. With each passing hour, the whispers grew louder in the corridors. Fellow students who had once ignored her now shot her accusing glances, bringing her closer to the brink of despair. What if Mr. Jenkins is right? What if I did something wrong? Sarah's mind raced, thoughts spiraling. Doubt gnawed at her conscience, clashing violently against her notion of integrity, the very value instilled in her by her mother. She recalled late-night talks filled with lessons on honesty and the importance of standing tall when facing adversity. The sense of betrayal only deepened. Would she be forced to challenge her mentor? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she walked home, her heart felt heavy, dragging along the burden of her reputation. "Mom, what do I do?" she finally whispered, tears brimming in her eyes that she couldn't allow to spill over. "I thought he believed in me." Her mother sat her down, grabbed her shoulders, and locked eyes with her, grounding Sarah in a moment of clarity. "You fight for what you believe in, even when it's hard, Sarah. You show them who you are." The emotional turmoil twisted inside her like a roller coaster, each peak washed over with a fresh wave of doubt. When she returned to school, a newfound energy surged within her. But with every step, doubt countered hope. How could she reclaim her narrative when the pieces felt so out of reach? The friendship with Emma, the new girl who had approached her with understanding, glimmered as a possible lifeline. Together, they rallied strength, strategizing a way to confront the accusations head-on. Would she uncover the courage she needed to defend her honor? The day of the school board meeting loomed large, every tick of the clock amplifying her anxiety. Would she speak for the truth that felt so distant? Gathering her thoughts, Sarah knew that standing up in front of everyone wouldn't simply challenge the allegations. It would define who she was to become. As her resolve swelled, so did the pressure within, creating a perfect storm of determination and terror. The battle was just beginning, and Sarah wouldn't back down now. Would she rise to reclaim her story, or would the judgment of others dictate her fate? As the day of the school board meeting approached, Sarah found her mind oscillating between fear and determination. Each moment felt like a countdown, a relentless reminder of the choice she faced, to stand tall or to shrink away. Her fingers fumbled with her notes, a stack of meticulously written arguments that fluctuated between confident declarations and shaky assertions. In the hours leading up to the meeting, Emma's support grounded her, their late-night conversations morphing into a strategic blueprint. "Just remember who you are," Emma said, her voice steady and reassuring. "You're not just defending yourself, you're fighting for everyone who has ever been misunderstood." The cafeteria buzzed with chatter, and as Sarah entered, she felt invisible eyes scrutinizing her every move. Whispers blared in her ears, but she steeled herself, locking eyes with Emma across the room. They shared a nod, an unspoken pact to face the world together. But inside, Sarah grappled with thoughts that clawed at her resolve. What if Mr. Jenkins didn't believe her? What if she couldn't get her words out? After school, Sarah retreated to her favorite spot under the old oak tree by the playground, a sacred place of solitude where she had often gone to escape. As she sat down, the world faded, leaving only the rustling leaves. "Breathe," she whispered to herself. With every inhalation, she envisioned the outcome she desired, standing proud, conquering the doubts that haunted her. In that stillness, an idea struck like a bolt of lightning. She could use the data, the solid evidence of her performance. She dug her phone out and quickly gathered her past tests, along with records from her study sessions, transforming her emotional turmoil into tangible proof of her hard work. Each score became a testament not just to her intelligence but to her grit. This would be her defense. The next day, the atmosphere in the conference room felt stifling, filled with parents' disappointed glances and teachers' narrowed eyes. Mr. Jenkins sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. It was an arena of judgment that tightened around Sarah like a vice. As she took her place at the front, poised yet trembling, she glanced at Emma, her presence a silent encouragement that ignited a flicker of courage within her. "Thank you for hearing me," she began, her voice cracking but steadying as she spoke. "I want to address the allegations directly. I didn't cheat." Murmurs rippled through the room, but she pressed on, fueled by her resolve. Pulling out her organized records, she laid them before the board. "These are my results, my hours of study. I've worked really hard." Each word became a stepping stone, connecting her to the truth she needed to convey. Just as her confidence began to swell, Mr. Jenkins leaned forward, skepticism etched on his face. "But how can we be sure someone else didn't provide these answers? You must understand the gravity of the situation." A pang of despair shot through Sarah, but she recognized this moment was pivotal. This was more than proving innocence, it was a chance to redefine her narrative. "If you think I'm capable of cheating, then you don't know me at all," she retorted, her voice rising with an unexpected strength. "I've earned everything through hard work. I am not defined by rumors." The room fell silent, the pressure of her defiance hanging in the air. She could feel the tide shifting, but would it be enough? The moment of truth had arrived, and the reality of speaking out settled like a weight on her shoulders. Her heart raced as she braced for the response. Would they see her truth through the fog of doubt? Would her voice be enough to carry her past the shadows of suspicion? Silence enveloped the room, a heavy veil that suffocated Sarah's moment of bravery. The seconds ticked by, each one stretching into a painful eternity as she searched for some flicker of acknowledgement in Mr. Jenkins' steely gaze. He dissected her as if she were a riddle to solve, and she felt her resolve teetering on the brink of uncertainty. "Sarah," Mr. Jenkins finally said, breaking the tension with a measured tone. "Your passion is commendable. However, passion without trustworthiness means little in this environment." His words cut deeper than she anticipated, igniting an inner storm of fury. How could he disregard her efforts so easily? Determination surged within her. This was not just about the accusation, it was about proving to herself that she was worthy of belief. "Can we agree on one thing?" she responded, voice steadying with each word. "That each of us is more than our mistakes or the perceptions others hold of us. I'm not trying to convince you of my honesty, but rather to show you who I am." A murmur of agreement rippled through some members of the board. In that moment, she sensed a shift, her vulnerability feeding their curiosity. Sarah seized the opportunity, strategically restructuring her argument. "I want to share my study strategies and how I prepared for years to achieve these grades. If I stumbled, I assure you, it would be a lesson, not a life sentence." With renewed vigor, she laid out her study plans, illustrating the late nights spent poring over textbooks and organizational methods she developed. She watched their faces transform, from skepticism to intrigue, as she elucidated her process. Passion oozed from her every word, charging the air with an electric potential for victory. Yet, amidst her presentation, a nagging thought resurfaced: what if Mr. Jenkins's opinion could never be swayed? This doubt threatened to undermine her enthusiasm, injecting uncertainty into the core of her resolve. How could one man's perspective hold so much power over her sense of self? For a split second, she faltered, her breath hitching. But then she thought of Emma's supportive smile. That moment of doubt became a catalyst for clarity. She realized that her strength did not solely rely on winning this argument. Instead, it lay in her willingness to be authentic and unabashedly herself. The board members began to nod as she recounted small anecdotes of her hard work, the setbacks she faced, and how she overcame them. Sarah felt the energy shift further, a palpable change that told her they were listening not just to her words but to the very essence of who she was. As she wrapped up, she gazed over the board members, challenging them with her eyes. "I don't expect everyone to agree with me, but I hope to earn the opportunity to prove myself in the future. Give me a chance to show you that I am more than what people might say." A brief silence followed before Mr. Jenkins finally spoke. "Thank you for your presentation, Sarah. We will consider what you've shared today." Her heart raced. There was still uncertainty, but for the first time, she felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. As she stepped away from the podium, gratitude washed over her, not just for the possibility of being believed, but for uncovering her own strength in the process. Walking out of the conference room, she exchanged an exuberant glance with Emma, feeling lighter, as if a weight had lifted off her shoulders. Yet, the uncertainty of their final decision hung in the air. How would they respond to her plea? As she stepped into the hallway, the atmosphere buzzed with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Little did she know, the seeds she planted today were only the beginning. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket, a notification that could change everything. Would it be a message of support, or a reminder of the risks she took? As Sarah stepped away from the conference room, the clattering of her heels echoed sharply against the cold, marble floor. Her heart still raced from the confrontation, each pulse a reminder of her own heartbeat and resolve. In the sanctuary of the hallway, she took a deep breath, recalling the faces of the board members reacting to her words. An apprehensive flicker of hope ignited within her, but the question loomed ominously: what lay ahead? The buzz of her phone pulled her back from her reverie. She fished it from her pocket, staring at the screen. It was a message from her mentor, Ms. Landon. "Can we talk? Important." Sarah's chest tightened. Ms. Landon had always been a beacon of guidance, but this urgency felt like a storm brewing on the horizon. Clutching her phone tightly, she headed toward Ms. Landon's office, her mind racing with possibilities that could follow such a message. Was it about the board meeting? Would she be reprimanded for her approach? The questions gnawed at her, but she refused to succumb to fear. This time, she would face whatever was to come with fortified determination. When Sarah knocked, the familiar warmth of Ms. Landon's office enveloped her like a soft blanket. The teacher glanced up, her brow furrowed in thought, before patting a seat beside her desk. "Sarah, it's not what I expected to hear in the meeting." The way Ms. Landon trailed off ignited a flicker of dread. Had the board painted her as a troublemaker? There would be no reason for concern if everything had gone according to plan. "Yes," she interjected before the spiral of worry could take hold. "I spoke from the heart. I needed them to see me, not just the accusations." Her mentor nodded, the lines of concern easing slightly. "That's exactly why I wanted to talk to you. Your honesty impressed the board, but Mr. Jenkins doesn't give up easily. I fear he may devise a follow-up challenge to test your integrity further." The words struck like a bolt of lightning. Sarah felt a wave of unease ripple through her. "Do you think he'll launch a formal inquiry? Based on what? Just my word?" Ms. Landon leaned forward, placing a reassuring hand on Sarah's wrist. "I believe he may, and that can be a double-edged sword. This can either break you or become a pivotal moment for you to demonstrate your true capabilities." The weight of her mentor's insight sank in. Sarah felt the urgency to prepare concretely for whatever challenges came her way. What if I turned his skepticism into an opportunity? She pondered aloud, her mind already racing through possible strategies. An opportunity to showcase your skills, to build on trust, Ms. Landon affirmed, her eyes sparkling with approval. But a great opportunity takes great work. Are you ready to face the challenge head-on? This time, Sarah didn't hesitate. I'll prove that I'm not just a student who can memorize facts but someone who understands and applies knowledge. I can't let anyone define me by a mistake, especially not Mr. Jenkins. A plan began to fold in the rich landscape of her thoughts. It would require dedication, resilience, and perhaps, some calculated risk-taking. As she stood to leave, determination radiated from her. I will work on a project to present to the board something that illuminates my commitment and is beyond reproach. I need to be on the offensive, not the defensive. Ms. Landon's face broke into a proud smile. That's the spirit, Sarah. Just remember, the real challenge is not just proving them wrong but proving to yourself what you're truly capable of achieving. Sarah exited the office, invigorated. The corridor felt different now, a realm of possibility rather than uncertainty. And yet, an unsettling thought clung to her: what if this project ignited the board's scrutiny instead of admiration? In that moment, a flicker of doubt threatened to dim her fire. But with each confident step down the hallway, she couldn't ignore the strength growing within her, the unquenchable spirit of someone ready to combat the looming challenges. As soon as she reached her locker, a chilling message flared. Up in her mind, someone would stop at nothing to undermine her efforts. The confrontation with Mr. Jenkins was only the beginning. How would she prepare for the trials ahead? The answer, she realized, wouldn't just be in her research. Her true growth would stem from overcoming the obstacles she had yet to face. The project loomed large in Sarah's mind, an amalgamation of both fear and excitement intertwining into a potent force driving her forward. She sat down at her desk that evening, surrounded by scattered papers, colorful markers, and sticky notes, each an intentional reminder of her commitment. The faint glow of her desk lamp illuminated her determined expression as she began pouring her thoughts onto the page. What could she present that would not only silence her critics but also solidify her place as a valuable member of the team? The essence of the project needed to encapsulate her insights, her personal growth, and the very essence of integrity she had so boldly defended in the boardroom. A complex strategy began taking shape before her, each component calculated while also reflecting her creative spark. Clarity, she muttered to herself as she laid down the first structured idea. I need to simplify the data while still showing its intricacies. The board loves numbers, but they need context. In moments of drafting her outline, Sarah felt a swelling of confidence. This was the perfect opportunity to showcase not just her analytical prowess, but also her ability to communicate effectively. However, as her thoughts flowed, another darker current rippled through her. What if this endeavor fell flat? What if Mr. Jenkins orchestrated a counterattack that dissected her efforts before they even reached the board? Self-doubt crept in, whispering insidious thoughts that threatened the clarity of her focus. Questions ricocheted in her mind: who would she turn to for support if things turned south? She knew she could rely on Ms. Landon, but a gnawing fear lingered. Would Ms. Landon be enough against the strategic acumen of seasoned professionals? Determined to convert doubt into strength, Sarah steeled herself. Each time she felt a flicker of apprehension, she pushed back, reminding herself that the growth she sought wouldn't manifest from comfort. Scenarios swirling in her head spurred her into action. She needed research, data points, testimonials, anything that could lend credence to her project. With focus regained, she dove into her computer's resources, uncovering insights in the realm of through-line narratives of success and resilience. She crafted her presentations, layered with visuals that told a compelling story transcending mere statistics. It became a reflection of her journey, linking back to the allegations of incompetence that now served as motivation rather than a hindrance. Days flowed into nights as Sarah transitioned from hope to ambition. She began to visualize her day in the boardroom, her presentation lit up on the screen. Confidence replaced the initial trepidation buzzing in her veins. Yet, it's as though Mr. Jenkins's figure loomed over her thoughts, shrouded in menace, foreshadowing his imminent move. Just as she settled into an encouraging rhythm, her phone buzzed again. It was another message from Ms. Landon, but this time the words were cryptic and unsettling. Need to talk ASAP. It's urgent. Are you free? A chill washed over Sarah as she stared at the message. Had there been a development regarding Mr. Jenkins? Was he already strategizing against her project? The anticipation manifested into anxiety, screwing her stomach into knots. She had prepared meticulously, yet the thought of an unseen adversary undermining her efforts cast shadows on her resolve. Seeking clarity, she took a deep breath and typed back, "Yes, I'm available now. What is going on?" As she hit send, the weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on her shoulders. She was wrestling with more than just her project now, she was grappling with the doubts of her worth in this challenging environment. Would she rise to challenge the potential onslaught, or would she find herself faltering beneath the pressure? Each tick of the clock amplified the tension, squeezing her resolve tighter while her mind raced towards the unknown. The moment felt pivotal, like the precipice before an unforeseen plunge. As her phone buzzed with a reply, a creeping dread and anticipation wove together within her, tightening around her heart. What revelation awaited her? Would it propel her forward into uncharted waters, or bring the daunting repercussions of a battle yet to begin? The message from Ms. Landon arrived much faster than Sarah had anticipated, igniting a surge of adrenaline in her veins. It's about Jenkins. We need to meet in person. The implication of urgency wrapped around Sarah like a vice. She didn't want to overthink it, yet the unease twisted her gut. What had Jenkins done? The questions raced through her mind like wildfire, but she knew she had to keep her composure. She couldn't afford to let fear drive her feelings or her actions. Where? She responded, forcing her fingers to steady as she typed. The cafe down the street. I'll be there in 10. Sarah took a moment to breathe, her heart pounding as she prepared to leave her workplace. Each step towards the cafe felt like a descent into an abyss filled with uncertainty. The bustling noise of the city outside both distracted and centered her, a cacophony that reminded her of the stakes in this moment. When she arrived, Ms. Landon was already seated, her expression a mixture of concern and determination. Sarah slid into the seat opposite her, the gravity of the situation descending heavily upon her. "Sarah, I'll be blunt. Jenkins is cooking something up. I don't know the details yet, but he has been gathering data and talking to stakeholders about your project. I overheard him mentioning potential flaws." A lump formed in Sarah's throat. The odds felt insurmountable. "But I've faced this before. I'm prepared. I've worked hard on this. Surely, the data speaks for itself." Ms. Landon leaned forward, her voice low but firm. "Evidence matters, yes, but perceptions can distort it. Jenkins is skilled in twisting narratives. It's his political savvy we have to counter. You need to prepare yourself to defend not just the project but your integrity." The reality of Ms. Landon's words hit hard. Sarah understood the implications. This was more than just a project, it was a fight for recognition and validation. The sensation of her heart drumming in her chest reminded her of the daunting task ahead. "It feels like I'm being cornered," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "What can I even say to change their minds? You have to present yourself as not just a participant but a leader. Emphasize your journey, your data, but also showcase your growth and resilience. Make them see the narrative that Jenkins can't rewrite," Ms. Landon urged, her eyes sparkling with fierce determination. The urgency of the situation ignited a fire in Sarah. She could not allow Jenkins's underhanded tactics or misinterpretations dictate her success. Armed with this new perspective, she realized it was time to amplify her voice and establish her presence. She regarded Ms. Landon, sensing the mentor's unwavering faith in her abilities, and it settled into a solid foundation beneath her ambitions. "Right. I won't let him win," Sarah declared, her confidence growing like a flame. "I'll refine my presentation, anticipate his objections, and prepare to dismantle his arguments one by one." Ms. Landon smiled encouragingly. "That's the spirit. You have the ability to turn this challenge into your advantage. Don't just defend against Jenkins, lead them on a journey that resonates with every board member." Their conversation deepened, strategies unfurling before Sarah's mind like a map of interconnected possibilities. With every word, she felt the fog of self-doubt begin to dissipate. The clarity she sought transformed into a sharper focus on her own narrative and the profound realization that her passion had the power to disrupt Jenkins's intended reign over her project's outcome. As they parted ways, determination ignited within Sarah anew. She wasn't merely preparing a presentation, she was crafting her legacy, a testament to her progress. Arriving home, she sat down at her desk once more, the scattered papers before her now a canvas for her newfound resolve. But as she started revising her outline, a new chilling thought brushed against the back of her mind. What if Jenkins had allies, and what if his tactics were more cunning than anyone realized? The question sat heavily in her thoughts as she crafted a response to the looming battle ahead, invigorated yet feeling the unsettling shadows of distrust weigh upon her efforts. How could she navigate not only the presentation but also the treacherous web of office politics and power plays that threatened to engulf her? The clock ticked ominously in the background, and as Sarah felt the pulse of urgency quicken in her heart, she knew the next move was critical. Would she expose the cracks in Jenkins's carefully constructed facade, or would she find herself ensnared within it? The next morning, Sarah awoke with a sense of urgency coursing through her veins. The air in her apartment felt charged, as though the very walls were urging her to rise and prepare herself. She opened the curtains to a bright, overcast sky, the clouds swirling like the thoughts in her mind. Today was not just another day, it was the day she would confront Jenkins and the doubts threatening to unravel her hard work. As she sipped her coffee, Sarah noted how each gulp fueled her determination. She was no longer merely a manager on this project, she was its architect, carrying the weight of its structure and fate on her shoulders. This shift in perception braced her against the weight of Jenkins's looming disapproval. In the hours leading up to her presentation, Sarah meticulously revised her slides, ensuring every data point served as a firm rebuttal to any claims Jenkins might seize upon. But beyond the hard facts, she needed to weave a story, one that reflected not just statistics but her growth through adversity. She compiled anecdotes and reflections that showcased her resilience and commitment to the project. Each paragraph became a reflection of her journey rather than mere numbers on a slide. By noon, she stood in front of the mirror, rehearsing her key points. The reflection looking back at her bore a visage she was beginning to recognize, strong, capable, and fortified by a purpose much larger than any egotistical gamesmanship. She practiced with fervor, already anticipating how her words could hit home, dismantling Jenkins's impending criticisms with the precision of a surgeon. But as she mentally prepared for her audience, the unease returned, slithering back like a snake. If Jenkins were to rally support against her, she needed to counteract with more than just facts, she needed allies of her own. Could Ms. Landon serve as her ambassador in the meeting? Even a casual conversation with another colleague might sway opinions in her favor. Taking a deep breath, Sarah picked up her phone and texted Ms. Landon. "Could you join me in the presentation? I could use your perspective if things heat up." Seconds ticked away before Ms. Landon replied affirmatively, injecting fresh hope into Sarah's veins. On her way to the conference room, Sarah passed colleague after colleague, each one sharing asymmetric smiles and glances. What were they thinking? Did they know about Jenkins's plans? The anxiety clawed at her, a threatening reminder that even amongst allies, uncertainty could breed shadows. As she entered the room, Sarah's heart raced. The atmosphere buzzed with faint murmurs and scattered paper shuffles. Jenkins sat smugly at the head of the table, his presence radiating confidence. He had the demeanor of a predator, and she felt like her back was against the wall. With a nod from Ms. Landon, Sarah approached the front, mind racing, heart pounding. She opened her laptop, and as the first slide flickered to life, she felt the air thicken, hanging heavy with unspoken judgments. Would her preemptive defense be enough to counter Jenkins' attacks? Her palms tingled with a potent mix of anxiety and adrenaline. "Good afternoon, everyone," she started, voice steady despite her racing heart. "Today, I'm here to discuss the innovative potential of our project and the incredible mechanisms we've built into its framework both for resilience and scalability." She caught a few nodding heads, a small victory. But as she advanced through her carefully crafted narrative, Jenkins interrupted, swinging the tide of attention in his direction. "Sarah," he pierced through, his voice dripping with condescension. "You speak about resilience, yet you seem to underestimate the data challenges inherent in this model." The eyes turned to her, an unsettling spotlight illuminating her every flaw. Manifesting courage from within, Sarah planted her feet firmly. "We can address those challenges head-on. Let me explain how." But the weight of his gaze and the whispers from around the table felt like a tightening noose. As the confrontation escalated, Sarah's focus sharpened. She would not only address the numbers but would draw upon her story, the struggles she overcame, the sleepless nights, the dedication that fueled the project's progress. The moment was about to crystallize into something defining. Suddenly, a new thought flickered in her mind. She needed more than data and passion. She had to showcase an absolute commitment to her vision, foreshadowing her decision to reveal the strategic alliance she had formed with Ms. Landon. But as she prepared to elevate her speech to that international level of collaboration, another nagging thought entered her mind. What if personal biases clouded the judgment of those present? What if her own confidence wasn't enough to sway Jenkins' allies? As Sarah forged ahead, the stakes continued to climb. Would the board see beyond their preconceived notions, or would they fall prey to Jenkins's manipulations? The fabric of her future hung in a delicate balance as she poured every ounce of truth into her presentation, poised at the edge of a breakthrough or collapse. How would she counter Jenkins' next move? The answer waited just out of reach, teetering on the cusp of vulnerability and authority. As Jenkins' voice resounded in the conference room, punctuating the air with authority, Sarah felt a shift within herself. It wasn't mere apprehension, it was an awakening. The spotlight wasn't just uncomfortable, it was an opportunity. Each spoken word from Jenkins felt like a challenge thrown at her, igniting an ember of defiance that had long lain dormant. "I understand your hesitations, Jenkins," she replied, channeling a courage that surprised even her. "But the challenges you fear have been anticipated. We've implemented flexibility within our model to accommodate data fluctuations. Let me show you how." She transitioned to the next slide with newfound resolve, the data transforming from mere numbers into a tapestry of her hard-earned insights. The frowns and smirks around the table slowly shifted to expressions of curiosity. In orchestrating her thoughts carefully, Sarah utilized anecdotes that contradicted Jenkins' pessimism, crafting a narrative of innovation that resonated with her audience. Yet, as one eyebrow raised in skepticism from another board member, a question reverberated through Sarah's mind: could she sustain this momentum? With Jenkins being so practiced in the art of undermining, she recognized that the storm of opposition brewing would require more than data. It demanded firm footing built through her relationships with the team. Ms. Landon's earlier support glimmered like a beacon in the back of Sarah's mind. Steeling her resolve further, Sarah made a point to invite her into the conversation. "As Ms. Landon can attest," she said, gesturing to her ally, "our approach includes collaborative discussions to guarantee alignment across departments. This isn't a single-minded endeavor." The room's energy shifted subtly, all eyes now on Ms. Landon, eager for her perspective. Sarah watched as her mentor nodded, the stance of an advocate bolstering Sarah's voice. Underneath the folds of authority, she felt the cracks of Jenkins' pretense start to show. His focus waned, and the confidence he radiated began to flicker. This was an unexpected turning point. However, just as Sarah gained ground, Jenkins countered ferociously. A strategic alliance? He interjected, netting the attention back to him. Tell me, Sarah, have you really verified that Ms. Landon's department is aligned with your objectives? Or are you simply buying time with flattery? The challenge stung, echoing all her insecurities. Her mind raced. Was there a grain of truth laced in his tone? Yet before doubt could sink its teeth deeper, she reminded herself of her foundation, of everything that brought her here, and of the numerous evenings spent crafting every detail of this project. Flattery has no place in our exchange, Jenkins. We aligned on critical project milestones and objectives. In the midst of their confrontation, Sarah sensed the freshmen, the newer employees around the table, silently chosen as allies in this moment of dissent. It dawned on her, engaging them would amplify her voice. For those less familiar with our processes, I'd be happy to provide a detailed overview of our coordination efforts with other teams later on. This prompted nods of interest, and the atmosphere began to pivot. The board members seemed drawn into her vision as though she were crafting a story where they all played a pivotal role. Yet, in the depths of her thoughts, underlying uncertainty remained. She still lacked clarity about her own standing within the company hierarchy. Would she emerge as a leader or simply a voice overpowered by Jenkins' rhetoric? As the meeting progressed, Sarah noticed Jenkins becoming visibly agitated. Each rebuttal she presented felt like a gust of wind fueling her sails, pushing her towards a greater self-discovery. She realized that this confrontation was about more than defending her project. It was about affirming her place, not just as a project manager but as a vital contributor to the team. With her presentation evolving into a back and forth, the tension heated up. There was no turning back. Each word exchanged held weight, not just in the context of the project but within her battle for recognition and respect. If she lost this moment, what would it mean for her future? Somewhere deep inside, another voice began to well up within her, one that demanded she not only fight for her project but for her right to take place at the table of leadership. How far she was willing to go to ensure her story was heard, echoed fiercely in her mind. It was then that she realized Jenkins had another card up his sleeve. An unexpected ally had begun to whisper ideas into the ears of others. If she was to counter that, she needed more than just her alliances. She needed to reach deeper within herself. As her conviction hardened, the boardroom echoed the growing stakes of her fight. What was the price of victory in this relentless struggle? Would her dedication yield the leadership transformation she desired, or would the din of doubt overpower her determination? The answer loomed ahead, shrouded in uncertainty, as Sarah prepared for the next unwritten chapter of her journey, ready to transform this dialogue into a defining moment. How would she navigate the trepidation waiting on the horizon? The atmosphere in the conference room became palpable, charged with the electric tension between Sarah and Jenkins. As the back and forth escalated, she could feel the weight of their exchanges cloak the room like a dense fog, thick with implications. Her heart pounded, but crystal clarity surged through her. She would no longer retreat into the background. Jenkins leaned back in his chair, arms crossed defiantly. His mouth curved slightly, betraying a confidence that, to her, felt hollow. But it was an illusion she was ready to expose. She glanced around the table, feeling the hesitant energy of her colleagues swell into a potential tide for change. Yes, they could become allies, but only if she guided them there. Let us examine not just our models but also our past outcomes, she pronounced, voice steady. Data isn't just numbers, it's an evolving narrative that guides future decisions. We've acknowledged the pitfalls Jenkins points out and surpassed them in tangible ways. In her mind, she strategized each word against Jenkins's insults and corporate jargon. Each point made wasn't merely a defense but an assertion of authority she had yet to truly embrace. How often had she told herself that she needed validation? That she had to earn respect through results? Now, she realized self-assurance could forge alliances. Separated from the rising tide of anxiety, Sarah employed an unexpected strategy. Let us integrate collaborative feedback moving forward, incorporating voices from every department, she said, her tone shifting toward inclusivity, invoking shared ownership. She noticed Jenkins reflectively narrow his eyes at her. Did he sense the shift? Did he know the ground he'd been standing on was tenuous at best? The younger employees began to chime in, curiosity bubbling over. The more she engaged them, the more embers of support flared around the conference table. There, within their camaraderie, she unexpectedly found her backbone solidifying. The fear that once followed her like a shadow was being uprooted, the sunlight of collaboration visibly piercing through. "Does anyone else have comments or concerns?" she asked, keen to widen the opening. A project powered by collective strengths mitigates individual weaknesses. Sarah observed heads nodding, realization sweeping over them. Had she not just extended an invitation for them to step into the forefront? With every moment, Jenkins' perfunctory replies became less sharp, his commanding presence weakened. The executive presence he had commanded was slipping, and for the first time, an opportunity emerged to claim her stake in the organization's landscape. Still, the battleground was fraught with hidden dangers. Jenkins was crafty, always a step ahead. What would he marshal next? Amid the rising momentum, doubt gnawed at her. Was she drawing power from her allies, or was she merely gambling with their uncertain loyalties? Furthermore, she pressed on, sensing an opening. We can implement feedback checkpoints throughout the project's lifecycle. This ensures accountability on all parts. The idea hung in the air, a rhythmic pulse, waiting for affirmation. Sure enough, one of the junior analysts broke away from his quiet nodding with a soft but steady, "That's actually a good idea. I think it would help." The ground beneath her began to solidify as she felt their support swell. But it wasn't over. Jenkins regained his footing, his earlier smirk replaced by cold calculation. "Checkpoints? Really, Sarah? That sounds more like a method for stalling progress than ensuring quality." He had timed his intervention perfectly, another dagger to her burgeoning confidence. This time, doubts began to spiral, a familiar darkness enveloping her thoughts. But they were merely echoes of the past, reverberations from a time when she had allowed others to dictate her worth. As she opened her mouth to respond, clarity returned. What did she wish to project? "Honestly, Jenkins," she said, articulating the words as she grounded herself in certainty, "if we're concerned about stalling, we should consider that. Your challenges mean we must adapt agile methodologies that reflect real-time context." The meeting's energy vibrated with intensity. The tide had certainly begun to turn, but Sarah knew it would not resolve without confronting Jenkins directly. The calm before the storm loomed near, urging her to probe deeper into his motivations. She could feel it, his impending misstep awaited in the wings like a whispered promise. Sarah leaned forward, intensely focused. She was evolving within the confrontational space they shared, not out of resentment but determination. The upcoming clash felt inevitable, a doorway to her readiness. Engaging more utterly in this conflict demanded that she look beyond the immediate. It meant discovering her potential as a leader. As the minutes stretched, so did Sarah's resolve. The lingering fear transformed into fierce intent. What whispers of doubt lingered in her mind would soon be quelled. She would assert herself, not just as a manager but as a leader capable of defining the next stages of their work together. Was it time to confront Jenkins directly, to summon the courage to dismantle his influence and fully reclaim her authority? The decision, again, rested solely in her hands. The moment hung heavy with potential. How far she would go to lay claim to her narratives awaited clarity in the next unfolding chapter. Sarah stood at the edge of a pivotal moment, her heart pounding against her ribcage as she locked eyes with Jenkins. The air in the conference room felt electric, charged with potential and tension. The exchange of words had transformed from mere dialogue into a fierce battle of will, one that would determine not only the fate of her project but her very identity as a leader. With newfound resolve surging through her veins, Sarah took a deep breath, centering herself in the moment. "Jenkins," she began, her voice steady yet fierce, this isn't just about our models or numerical values. It's about trust and integrity, values I hold dearly and strive to uphold in my work. You have every right to question processes, but undermining my character is where I draw the line." The sincerity in her words echoed through the room, stirring a quiet murmur among her colleagues. Their reaction hung like a palpable weight in the air. Heads turned towards Jenkins, curious gazes searching for his response. For once, he seemed momentarily caught off guard, the predatory confidence wavering. In this charged atmosphere, Sarah recognized a crucial shift. Her words were resonating with her peers, becoming a collective understanding that they were all part of a significant conversation. Instead of rushing to defend his stance, Jenkins measured his words, an unusual hesitation rippling through his typical bravado. "I respect your passion, Sarah. However," he interjected, a calculated edge creeping back into his tone, "not everyone views passion as an effective substitute for objectivity in this line of work." Her heart raced, but beneath it, she felt an undercurrent of purpose solidifying within her. This battle was a culmination of her efforts, not simply for personal validation but to illustrate the power of perseverance and conviction. "What I propose is a synergistic approach," she continued, her confidence buoyed by the support of her colleagues. "An approach that not only values empirical data but also respects the integrity of each member's contributions. I want to create a culture where every voice matters, including yours." A flicker of surprise crossed Jenkins's face, but Sarah pressed on, feeling momentum shift in her favor. "To dismiss my efforts as anything less than genuine is to dismiss the hard work of the entire team. If we truly seek innovation and success, we must foster trust rather than sow discord." As she spoke, she could see colleagues beginning to engage, nodding in agreement, and sharing glances of appreciation. Their collective understanding transformed her newfound courage into an empowering force that transcended the immediate conflict. This was the moment she had envisioned, an arena to redefine her place, not as a victim of accusations but as a leader shaping the future. Jenkins's skepticism seemed to falter under the weight of her conviction. "Perhaps I was too hasty," he conceded, his tone softening ever so slightly. "We need to bridge the gaps between individual efforts and team goals more effectively." In that moment, Sarah understood the crossroad she had navigated. She had entered the conference room burdened by doubt, accused of cheating her way to success, and now stood before her peers transformed by adversity into a voice commanding respect. She had learned that true leadership was about embracing vulnerability, breaking down walls, and fostering collaboration. Through this confrontation, she had not only earned her right to belong but had lit the spark of transformation within herself. As the discussions continued, she was met with initiatives for collective accountability, allowing every voice to participate and contribute to the project. "We will begin with a workshop next week," she announced, excitement bubbling from her every pore. "A session where all departments can share insights, building an inclusive dialogue. Together, we can create a project that truly reflects our collective capabilities." As the meeting drew to a close, Sarah felt the jubilance of victory wash over her. It enveloped her like a warm embrace. Finally pushing back against the oppressive shadows that had lingered, she had transformed a moment of potential defeat into her ultimate triumph. She proved not only to Jenkins and the board members but to herself that true integrity manifests through action and resilience. With each step out of the conference room, Sarah carried newfound strength within her, a powerful force that would propel her toward her aspirations. She had not only reclaimed her narrative but emerged as a symbol of unwavering determination for the future. Sarah was ready to embrace her journey, knowing that the essence of success was in the growth she achieved, the connections she built, and the unwavering belief she held in her capabilities. She had become more than a student, she had become a leader. Now, let's take action. You need to subscribe now to our channel to immerse yourself in more exclusive emotional stories about growth and transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure others discover these heartfelt journey tales. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible evolution and how she conquered her fears. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Your support matters.